Hey, what's up everyone? It's Justin here and welcome to a video that I would call JTechApple Fleet 2016. A video that I introduced to you the gear upgrades I've made for this year, most of which started arriving last week, and I've gotten them together here and I wanted to introduce to you each piece in the major upgrade and kind of why I decided to go with each one. Today is also the channel's 4th birthday, and I wanted to talk about kind of my journey to get here and the cameras I've had in the past towards the end of this video. But without further ado, let's start out with the camera. So the camera I went with was the Sony FS5 right here. I did have the Panasonic GH4, which you're watching this video on right now, for a year and a half, and it has served me very well. I couldn't have been happier with my time with it. But I decided it was time for an upgrade, and a lot of the YouTube tech community switched over to the Sony A7R or A7S II late last year. But being someone who doesn't really want to have many parts of a rig, I decided to get a cinema camera this time that is dedicated towards video, as I'm someone who does not take a lot of photos at all. So the Sony FS7 was sort of out of my price range, but the FS5 I felt like was the best suited camera for me. It had built-in XLR, so I don't have to have any additional adapters. It used SD cards and has dual SD slots. And being someone who always leaves his ND filters at home, this thing has ND filters built in. And although it is kind of a premium compared to the A7R or S2, I think that in the long run, it'll definitely be worth it. And I also do some client work on the side as well. So I hope this will be a camera that is very well suited to the way I shoot and the way I work. And it looks pretty sick in my opinion as well. The lens I went with is a Samyang 24mm 1.5. It is a manual lens, which I've never used before. So I'm trying to get used to that, and I've heard great things about them. And I also have a 12mm on the way that I will use for the wider shots. But there's definitely a learning curve with this camera. So I'll be playing around with it for the next few weeks and letting you guys know when I officially start using it in a video. So that's that. The Sony FS5 camera will be replacing the Panasonic GH4. Next up was my computer, and a lot of you may remember in my office setup tour, I did have a Mac Pro 2013, which at the time I had no plans of actually getting rid of, but it was one that I bought in the same time I bought the GH4, which was a baseline model, which I ended up upgrading to 10 cores, D700 GPUs, and 64 gigabytes of RAM. It was much cheaper than going with a maxed out Apple option, and in the end when I sold it, I pretty much did break even. But the reason why I made the change was not because I didn't like the setup, but I heard a lot of YouTubers who had the iMac 5K mention that Final Cut runs much better on the iMac because of its i7 processor and QuickSync technology with Final Cut. Eventually, I kind of caved and decided that if I sold my Mac Pro, I can use the additional money even after purchasing a maxed out iMac to go towards my new camera, the Sony FS5. So I ended up going for it, and I ended up ordering this 5K iMac, which took about 2 weeks for Apple to make. It was a custom spec 4 GHz i7 with 4 gigabytes of video RAM, the AMD card in there, and also 32 gigabytes of self-updated RAM and a 2 terabyte Fusion drive, which I will be using with a Samsung T1 512 gigabyte flash drive as a scratch disk. And just from doing some tests of videos I've exported on my Mac Pro and my MacBook Pro Retina 15-inch, it is so fast and I'm absolutely blown away by the speeds, and I think I'm going to love using the iMac, although it did kind of have to grow on me, whether it was switching to a smaller form factor, the bezels, and it literally took me so many years to finally get an iMac after using MacBooks, Mac Minis, and the Mac Pro. But the display is gorgeous, and I might also be making a separate video on that in the near future as well. The third piece of my upgrade you won't see as much in the videos, obviously. I might do a series where I do some drone montages, but there's a hint, it was a new drone. You may have seen my video on the DJI Inspire 1, which is a pretty awesome drone, but I ended up selling it and getting a really good deal on a DJI Inspire 1. I've been loving it so far. It's obviously very expensive, and it's a drone I've always wanted because of how sick it looks, and the fact that you can also have two remotes to control the flight and the camera for client work especially, which I hope to do after I get some more practice on this guy. But I got it used. I've flown it twice now, and both times have been pretty successful. Still trying to learn the ins and outs and kind of how to get the best video quality out of it, but I will be doing a video possibly on it if you guys want to see it, and some of the test footage I got in it was pretty awesome. So that's the DJI Inspire 1 drone. Lastly, now that we covered my new 3 pieces of major equipment that will be going into my workflow, let's talk about kind of my journey to get here, as obviously I had to work very hard to be able to eventually pay off this gear and save up for camera after camera. And I'm pretty happy with the way that the channel has come to, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without your support. So I really have to thank you guys for watching my videos and those who have been watching from the start to really motivate me to work harder and harder in order to be able to upgrade my workflow, my office, and just everything to the point that it is at today, as you can see here. So my YouTube journey started out when I was about 11 or 12 years old. I made my first video on an iPod Touch 4th generation, which I saved up a year for. That shot HD video. I used a small garbage can as a tripod, which I still have today, in order to record videos in my bedroom carpet, where I just sat on the floor, borrowed any tech I could find, and just reviewed it, talked about it. Didn't do any editing at all, as I only had a Gateway LT2106 netbook at a time. That thing had like 1 gig of RAM and an Intel Atom processor, so there was no way I was editing on that. But before I go on and ramble about that, I edited pretty much just cropping the start and end clips from the iPod's photo app and uploaded directly to YouTube in 480p because it was much faster. My first 400 videos were on my channel called iTouchIPod 001, and I think I deleted all the videos now, which I sort of regret now, as I'd love to see them. But the first few hundred videos, I just used what I had, the iPod, and I definitely encourage a lot of you guys to do that as well. But right now, there's some great budget cameras out there for people to get started. But after I got rid of the iPod Touch and started using an actual camera, the first camera I bought was the Sony NEX3. It was about $400 as an open box. It was a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, I don't exactly remember, and I used that for a while. It got the job done, the video quality was pretty nice. Eventually, I bought my first Canon camera, which was the Canon T3i, and at the time, it was $800. I had to save up so long for that, and it was my dream camera for a while. But the thing is, I didn't really know how to use it. I started using the Sony NEX3 when I switched to my second channel, JTechApple, and then upgraded to the T3i when I started my third and newest channel that you're watching right now, JTechApple TV. And if you go back and watch some of my older videos, you will see that the video and audio quality is absolute crap. And that was because I didn't know how to use the camera. I didn't know how to use the DSLR. I didn't know how they worked. I didn't set the white balance or the ISO or the shutter speed or the aperture or anything else. I just turned on the camera when I got it back from the store and used it the way it was for far too long. My next camera after that was the Canon 70D. I had the T3i and NEX3 for quite a while, but eventually when I got the 70D, I think I had that for about a year before I found a good deal on a used Canon 6D, which I purchased locally and switched to my first full-frame camera. All these Canons served me pretty well, and eventually I kind of learned how to use a DSLR better, but when the Panasonic GH4 came out, a lot of the tech community switched to it in the jump to 4K, as at its price point at the time, $1,500 was great, considering this camera could record internal 4K at a great format and bitrate. So I finally caved after everyone pretty much got one, got rid of all of my Canons, and got the GH4. Like I said, for the last year and a half, it has served me very well. Now I have another learning curve to go through with a cinema camera, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. But as you can see, over the past 3 years, the channel itself has really grown and progressed, but it's definitely not been an easy journey. In total, my YouTube career has sort of gone on for about 5 or almost 6 years now. And after the second channel, I really did feel dismotivated and discouraged that I really wasn't getting anywhere with this YouTube thing, but I decided to go on with it and make this third and final channel in hopes of making a successful channel. And obviously, looking back now, I am so happy that I stuck to my dream in order to make a successful channel and goal after goal, being able to get to the point I am at today. Obviously, I have some big plans for 2016 and a lot I still have planned out and want to be able to achieve with this YouTube gig. But other than that, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like button. And this has just been a video introducing my new equipment, the DJI Inspire 1, the Sony FS5, and the iMac 27-inch 5K Retina, as well as a bit of a story of how I got here and kind of my early days on YouTube and my equipment progression over the years. I'll see you guys in my next video.